The thought of leaving behind a house one grew up in can be daunting to say the least. How can one place material value on an object so wholly sentimental and emotionally driven? These following people show us just how determined and attached one can get to their house. Here are 10 stubborn homeowners who refuse to move. Number 10. Edith Macefield. Woman of great determination, Edith Macefield was the 86-year-old who refused to move out of her century-old house despite being offered hundreds of thousands of dollars for it. Doris Edith Macefield, a Seattle resident, made headlines in 2006 when she refused $1 million to make a shopping mall in order to stay in Whitewood Cottage, as she called it. Without Edith's land, the mall had to be built around her cozy two-story cottage. When asked why she'd refuse an offer so good by her then friend and later heir, construction supervisor Barry Martin, she simply responded, "Where would I go? I don't have any family, and this is my home. This is where I want to die. Right in my own home, on this couch." The story didn't just gain traction by media outlets, but also by Pixar, who, as it's widely believed, modeled Carl and Ellie's Up house after Edith's Whitewood Cottage. In 2008, Macefield passed away, but not without delivering another shock to those still following her story. She left all of her belongings to Barry Martin, who'd become her caretaker at that point. He ended up selling the house for $300,000, which he used to pay off his kids' student loans. After so many years, Edith Macefield's life remains a mystery to all who knew her. The house still stands as a reminder of Edith's strength and bravery. Number 9. Half a House. In Toronto, Canada, stands a house split in half, a historical landmark. House number 54 and a half is one half of 6 full houses that stood tall on St. Patrick Street in the mid-1900s, then known as Dummer Street. The houses reflect the century they were built in with beautiful Victorian architecture, the late 19th century. After being built in the late 1800s, the area came to be known as a slump with seemingly no future prospects, and for half a century since its establishment, the area was rife with poverty and in desperate need of change. Developers started swooping in with nagging, increasingly difficult tactics to get owners to sell properties off so they would model the area to be more commercially pleasing. Resistance by homeowners was met with further insistence, and gradually almost every single owner of the connected homes gave in and sold their house. But not the Valkos family, though. In the late 1950s, when construction began, every other house was torn down, leaving behind the unsold half of the 54th building standing, a historical marvel. Now, this isn't to say that it was easy getting to a point where both the residents of the house and the surrounding neighborhood were pleased. There were many complaints filed by the Valkoses about ruined structures and weakened walls during construction. By 1972, house number 54 and a half had established itself to be one of the most fascinating buildings in the world. Number 8. Sandwich House, Mary Cook. Oftentimes when people stand resolute and determined in their beliefs, the outcomes can be spectacular. An example of this is Mary Cook, formerly known as Mary Aldrich, who refused to sell her house in 1915, choosing instead to let towering skyscrapers engulf her humble home. Architect Clarence Fagan True was assigned to remodel a fair share of houses of the Upper West Side in the 1890s, including what was then known as 249 West End Avenue, the Cooks' residence. Even after the tragic loss of her husband in 1913, Mary Cook sent her kids off to college and entertained weddings and other social events in that very house. Come 1915, many families like Cooks were being offered to sell and demolish their properties, and soon Mary too was approached. She declined over and over again till her tiny house stood just as proud in spirit as the huge towers surrounding it. It became a reminder of her life, of her dedication, and loyalty to her abode. Number 7. Chinese Nail Houses. What if you're okay with selling your property, but are not being reimbursed well enough by the government or by private solicitors? Well, such is the case with Chinese nail houses, a common phenomenon in China wherein dissatisfied homeowners refuse to leave their property, forcing constructors and developers to either halt construction or build around the often beaten down structures. Homeowner Liang has been in a spat with the government for a full decade and claims she isn't being compensated fairly. She has chosen to live in the one-story house in Guangzhou. However, it seems as though the developers decided to move forward with the project regardless, and footage shows Liang's nail house situated in a pit between 2 highway roads. She has no problem staying on in the mildly difficult-looking property and claims, "You think this environment is poor, but I feel it's quiet, liberating, pleasant, and comfortable." Number 6. Cafe Chez Sala. Sala Ojani, owner of the Cafe Chez Sala, is a man living in the past, and some might say he's blinded by sentiment and nostalgia. Others would commend his loyalty to his work and business. The 71-year-old, despite receiving constant offers for his 2-story triangular abode, refuses to budge. Even though the entire area surrounding his cafe is looking more and more like a post-apocalyptic wasteland every day, Sala promises to not yield. "I will not sell. I worked for it. This coffee house. They will not make me go. I'm used to pressure." And developers in the row by finally, it seems, are starting to accept that, as all projects requiring Sala to move have been postponed indefinitely. Ojani claims he wants to die in his cafe, which as far as declarations of affections go, pretty good one. Number 5. Vera Koking versus Donald Trump. Vera Koking and her husband bought the white 3-story house in Atlantic City in 1961. They would live there for decades, raising their children there, and Vera even operated the place as a boarding house once. Receiving offers for her house by rich, powerful men wasn't something new for Vera, who'd received multiple proposals to sell her conveniently located home. Most notably from Bob Guccione, the founder of Penthouse magazine, who offered her $1 million for her property. The widowed woman stood firm in her denials, though, even when former President Donald Trump relentlessly tried every tactic to get her to submit and build his casino. The case became public in 2015, when Vera Koking was in her mid-80s. Vera dealt with a lot while this was all going on, including having her roof set on fire and her windows being smashed. None of this deterred the headstrong widow, who had decided once and for all that she would not be bullied by big corporations into giving up her home. Now, almost 5 years later, Trump Plaza's success has fizzled, and Vera Koking doesn't even reside in her Atlantic City abode. Number 4. Nail Tomb China. Sometimes the property that homeowners can't seem to part with isn't actually a residential house. In certain cases, it's a graveyard of ancestral bones. For the family of Cheng Jinzhu, the amount offered by developers for the property where their family lay in rest. The narrow column of land jutted out a few feet above the ground for weeks till the developers attempted to make the family a reasonable offer. In the end, the family accepted $100 as compensation and let the land go in 2012. Number 3. Another nail house. By this point, Nail House is standing tall, proud yet slightly demolished and pathetic looking isn't ideal, but it is the reality for Luo Baogan and his wife. After watching their whole village abandon them, the couple stood firm in their demands for better compensation. And as stories like these usually go, the Chinese government built a motorway around their whole house. The 5-story broken down establishment now looks like an unstable sore thumb. The farmers claim that they'd be happy to move if the compensation offered allowed them to, at the very least, move into another suitable residence. But as it stands, none of the two sides are willing to back down. Number 2. Wickham Spielberg. When the Wickham family opened their department store in London in the early 20th century, they did not prepare to be cornered by the Spielberg family, wealthy jewelers and clockmakers at the time, who would destroy their architectural plans. The Spielbergs were adamant in not selling a critically important piece of property to the Wickhams, and the department store owners built their establishment anyway, planning to buy the piece of land later. As it turned out, staying in business didn't exactly happen for the Wickhams, who never ended up buying that land, and now stands as a reminder in London's East End. Number 1. Acker's Abode. Randall Acker, lawyer and owner of the Figo House, a Queen Anne-style house in Portland, made headlines when he refused to sell his property. He started a protest called Save the Figo House when he heard that TriMet was contemplating allowing private buyers to own the property regardless of the owner's approval. He said, "First, they could have bought it when I bought it. This building is perfect for my practice." However, TriMet decided not to pursue the issue further in 2008. When his case was won, Acker decided to honor all those who said his house looked like Carl and Ellie's house in Up by hanging 400 balloons up on his house. So this is our list of 10 stubborn homeowners who just wouldn't move. Would you leave your long-term house fast? Let us know in the comments down below. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up and share the video with your family and friends. Be sure to subscribe for more content just like this and to be notified every time we upload a video by clicking the bell icon.